Hey, this is Rue. Today we're doing a challenge run for EU4. This is one of my favorite games of all time and one I have a lot of time in. I was thinking about how I and most people usually play this game. Lots of aggressive wars, rapid expansion, missionary and culture conversion, and so on, and wondered if it was possible to succeed at EU4 while playing ethically. For the purposes of this challenge, playing ethically means I will not be declaring any wars, coring any land, nor will my subjects be allowed to core. I will not be doing any missionary or culture conversions or seizing land from estates. We can be called to allied wars, but we cannot separate peace, and if we're given any land, we have to release or return it as soon as possible. I chose Ajam for this challenge for a couple reasons. First, I think this is a really fun area to play. There's a lot of variety here in terms of nations and religions, and Persia is a good node with lots of rich trade goods. I wanted a medium-sized nation. Too big and the challenge would be too easy, but too small and I'm not sure I could get it off the ground. Let's start with the estate setup. I had to be careful not to give away any crown land here since I'm not allowed to seize from estates. The only way I'll be able to increase crown land is by development. For the ulama, I went with oversight by the ulama, religious diplomats, and grant local residence to scholar. For the emirs, I chose increased levies. Any of the privileges with exempt from seized land is fine with me since we can't seize anyways, and strong duchies. For the merchant guilds, I picked patronage of the arts and free enterprise. For the demi, I went with grant demi liberties and protected demi communities. I can't use missionaries, so religious unity is going to be useful. As far as diplomacy, I did the classic noob opening for Sunni nations, royal marriage and alliance with the Ottomans. I can't use this offensively, but it should keep us safe from declarations of war until we're ready. We start with two small vassal nations to our west, Ardalan and Luristan. We get some excitement early on. QQ attacked Shirvan in January of 1446. While we can't declare wars, we can offer alliances, which Shirvan accepts, putting us in our first war. The addition of our forces has given the Shirvani side the numerical advantage. QQ does have good defensive terrain with lots of mountain forts, so we'll see how it plays out. Mid-war, we get the notification that the Timurid's leader has died, so that bloc is likely headed for disintegration. We'll deal with that after the war. For now, we start sieging in the north, capturing the capital of Karaman, one of QQ's vassals. We get a little bit lucky here. QQ doesn't get the siege tick at 42%, which gives us time to move our army south for the first major battle of the war. QQ does call in an ally at this point, Galan, which will make things a bit more annoying. Since we have the high ground and a numbers advantage, we end up winning the first battle here at Ardalan. We head for Tabriz next, while our ally sieges down Galan. Remember, we aren't the war leader, and actually will never be the war leader this entire challenge, so we have very limited control over any eventual peace deals. Galan pieces out for war reparations. We capture Tabriz and then wipe out a small vassal force trying to retake Karabakh. Next up is the mountain fort of Yerevan. The QQ forces now head west to siege AQ's capital, which is fine with me. We capture Yerevan and start heading south. There's yet another mountain fort here in Ilam, so we go for that next. We're able to take this one before QQ is even done capturing AQ's mountain capital. This war is almost over and the Timurid vassals are all disloyal, so we start supporting the independence of Transoxiana. Almost immediately we get called into the independence war. Afghanistan is actually the war leader, but since Transoxiana and Afghanistan were both supporting each other's independence, I guess we get called in too. We capture the mountain fort of Ilam and I send an alliance to Afghanistan since they're the war leader. A big rebel stack takes Tabriz, which is unfortunate since it drops war score, but we were busy in the south. We managed to work our way to AQ before the capital falls, and not only do we win the defensive battle, we're able to wipe out the remaining QQ forces as they retreat to Sinjar. We finally get the peace deal. QQ's been gutted, our vassals get 3 of their cores back, AQ gets a province, QQ is forced to release Armenia and Saran, and they have to grant independence to their 2 existing vassals. Let's shift focus to the Eastern Front. The Timurids have no chance here. Timurid independence wars are usually one-sided, but the Ottomans being involved makes this one a stomp. I mostly want to stake out some land so it doesn't get given away to other countries. Fortunately, the 2 subjects that stayed on the Timurid side, Khorasan and Fars, are the 2 that would be most likely to take the land we want. We end up being given a bunch of land when Biapis pieces out mid-war. We can't core this, obviously, so we'll have to deal with it when the war's over. Eventually, we get the final peace deal. The Timurids grant independence to 3 of their vassals and give a ton of land to Afghanistan. Transoxiana gets a couple provinces and we get a single one. This is an unfortunate peace deal since I was really hoping to get Ardakan or Yazd, but those will have to wait. With the war over, we can take care of our new provinces. We can't core them, but we can release them. First we release Biapis, which gets 3 provinces along the Caspian Sea, and then we release Kerman, which gets that single new province in the southeast. With 2 back-to-back wars out of the way, let's do some peaceful expansion. We have all of Ardalan's cores, so it's time to diplomatically annex them. Before doing so, we grab the Emir's integration policy for the reduced annexation cost and to disable the Diplo Rep penalty. Mushasa has one of our vassals' cores, so we ally them and start currying favors. A look west shows some strange things going on in the Balkans. Apparently, Venice went after Byzantium before the Ottomans, so Constantinople and most of southern Greece are in Venetian hands. This will slow down the Ottomans, but that's fine for our purposes. We finished the annexation of Ardalan in January of 1456. We get enough favors with Mushasha to ask Shushtar to be returned, after which we start annexing Luristan. That annexation finishes in June of 1461, which allows us to complete a couple missions. We're able to improve relations enough with Hais and Kaifa that they'll accept vassalization, which we offer in December of 1464. Next up is Biapis, which is integrated into our nation in November of 1465. Since they didn't join the previous independence bloc, Fars and Khorasan have remained Timurid subjects. Once the truce was up from the First War, we started supporting the independence of Fars and got called to a second Timurid independence war in 1468. I won't go through the play-by-play of this war since it's another one-sided one. The eventual peace deal from the Second War is much better for us. We get 4 provinces, including the ones we wanted from the last war, Ardakan and Yazd. Of course, we can't core anything, so we release Yazd as a 2-province vassal. These 2 eastern provinces are a problem. They don't have any other cores to release, so we give them back to Khorasan. Next up is some more peaceful expansion, starting by annexing Hais and Kaifa, which completes in March of 1478. We also integrate Yazd in September of 1485. Venice finally gets dogpiled in 1489, on the receiving end of no less than 3 major wars. The Ottomans capture Constantinople, which means they'll likely be headed east before too long. Our next opportunity comes in 1498, when QQ declares a holy war against Coptic Armenia. We can't let this aggression stand and offer an alliance to Armenia, which they accept. With our forces, this is another one-sided affair. In the peace deal, we end up getting 3 provinces. We release Tabriz as a 1-province vassal and Merage as the other. We ask our ally Armenia to return the province of Khoi to Tabriz. We improve relations with the new vassals, and after 10 years we start to integrate them. In 1511, Ardabil goes after Armenia again, who we had dropped as an ally. We're more than willing to ally them again, so we join in the second defense of Armenia. Ardabil has Mazandaran as an ally, so we head towards their land first. Once they're fully occupied, they surrender and we get both provinces. Armenia takes 1 province in the final peace deal and forces Karabakh to be released. With the war over, we can release Mazandaran. We ask our longtime ally Transoxiana to return the province of Golistan to our vassal. In 1516, the Ottomans call us to war and they're attacked against Karaman. I'm not sure why they need the help, but whatever. Karaman is allied to Saran, so we quickly occupy this 1 province minor. Saran's single province gets given to us in the peace deal, but since we have a number of Sarani cores, we end up having to release a significant chunk of our western territory. Shortly afterwards, the Ottomans call us to war again, this time against Imereti. We get nothing out of this other than an ever closer Ottoman neighbor. Surely that won't present problems going forward. The Ottomans call us to a 3rd war, this time against the Knights, France, and Cyprus, but we sit this one out and the Ottomans still win easily. Once we're at peace, we start annexing Mazandaran. Khorasan has been eaten by Transoxiana, so we return their cores and they accept our offer of vassalization in March of 1527. We also begin the process of integrating Saran. Mazandaran finishes annexation in May of 1531, which gives us the provinces we need to form Persia. Ajam has decent ideas, but Persia's are better, so we switch. For our religious direction, we're going to go with Zoroastrian since that's fun and will give us a center of conversion. We get a series of events and eventually a full-on Ulama rebellion. Once the rebels are dealt with, we are now officially Zoroastrian. We complete the mission to get our center of conversion. We get an event asking if we want to become Iran Shar. We do, but we're going to keep Persian ideas. We get a new estate along with all this, the Azwaran. We're going to establish the Azwaran regiments as well as allow protected communities. We can't culture convert anyway, so we might as well get the bonuses here. These privileges will let us train Kizilbash, which are slightly better troops with a reduced maintenance cost. Things are really slowing down at this point. In May of 1544, we're able to invite another country to our Zoroastrian community and peacefully vassalize them. I have no idea how to pronounce this name. In July of 1550, we unlocked the parliamentarism reform, which is a bit of a mixed bag. I think parliaments are underrated in EU4, but I'm not sure it was the right choice for this campaign. We lose the nobility estate, which means we also lose strong duchies, and the nobility annexation policy, which have both been really useful. The Ottomans call us to arms in 1551, this time going after QQ. This is another one-sided war, and the Ottomans take one province. A year later, the Ottomans ask for our help again, this time against Armenia. This war is at least interesting since Armenia is allied to Russia and Shirvan. Our forces quickly occupy Armenia, but I'm not about to march all across Russia for an Ottoman war. This war goes on for 6 years, eventually ending in 1558 with the Ottomans gaining one province from Armenia and several from Russia. We begin the process of integrating our northwestern vassal, and in June of 1559 we invite Armenia into our Zoroastrian community. This, combined with some subsidies, is enough for us to offer vassalization in February of 1560. The Ottomans call us to yet another war, this time against the Mamluks. In October of 1561, we finish our third idea group, having gone defensive, humanist, and influence. During the war, Shirvan, allied to the Mamluks, gets eaten by the Ottomans. We've been fortunate with rulers. Our current is a 546, and in March of 1566, we get a special Persian event for a 656 heir. The war concludes shortly afterwards, and the Ottomans take a large chunk of territory on the Mediterranean coast, but we don't get anything. However, with Ottoman opinion improved, we can start asking for Armenian cores to be returned. Over time, we've built up a significant number of favors, so we end up getting 3 Armenian provinces returned from the Ottomans. We release another vassal, this time Georgia, in September of 1566. The Ottomans have a number of Georgian provinces we can ask for, but it'll take a while to build our favors back up. The Ottomans call us to war yet again in 1567, going after QQ for the second time. I focus on knocking Mushasha out of the war, but since the Ottomans want this land, they're not going to give any of it to us. Mushasha pieces out pretty quickly with just war reparations. I occupy the sole remaining QQ province, but the war ends before I even have time to transfer it to Ottoman control. We get a bunch of Ottoman favors out of this war, which we put to use asking for Tbilisi to be returned to Georgia. In the meantime, we've been able to ally what's left of the Timurids, and they're willing to start returning provinces to our longtime vassal Karaman. This starts with the province of Saidabad in February of 1569. We switch back to the Ottomans, asking for Megrelia to be returned to Georgia. We get the third and final Kermani corps returned from the Timurids in February of 1571. With all their corps back, we start annexing them, a process that finishes in January of 1572. This gives us enough provinces to complete the mission to unlock the Great Works of Iran estate privilege, which we immediately grant to the merchant guilds. We use favors to get another Georgian corps back, the province of Abkhazia, in February of 1573. Next up is the integration of Armenia, which finishes in June of 1577. This lets us finally complete the Consolidate Persia mission, which distributes a bunch of development across our nation. Our relations with the Timurids have improved to the point that by November of 1580, they're willing to become our vassal. The Ottomans call us to war yet again, this time a second war against the Mamluks. We help out by pushing into the Arabian Desert. This is another long war, finally wrapping up in November of 1585, with the Ottomans taking another huge chunk of Mamluk land. This time we are fortunate enough to get a province, Avaz, on the Persian Gulf coast. We use this province to bring another nation back from the dead, this time Mushasha. We use the favors received from the Ottomans to get another Georgian province back, Imereti. We offer an alliance to Fars in February of 1587. They have a number of Mushashan corps that we should be able to get back over time. We get another Georgian corps back in December of 1593, the province of Kartli. Fars is next, returning Hovoisia in April of 1597. The Ottomans call us for what will end up being their final war against the Mamluks in April of 1601. The Mamluks fall fairly quickly, but the war takes a long time to wrap up since the Ottomans have to march to and occupy one of the largest Songhais I've ever seen. The war concludes with the special Ottoman Mamluk mechanic, which turns all of the Mamluks into an Ottoman eyalet, a special type of subject. Since we're at peace again, we ask Fars for another Mushashan province back. With the Mamluks off the table, the Ottomans have had enough of our alliance and break it in September of 1605. This was expected, and we've been preparing, building a number of fortifications along the western border and expanding and drilling our armies. We respond to the alliance break by officially declaring the Ottomans our rival. A quick look at the religious situation. We lose our Zoroastrian center of conversion in February of 1610, but the majority of the country has been converted and we're able to propagate religion in the Persia trade node. Not much of note happens for the next few years. We get another Mushashan province back via favors from Fars in July of 1617. Just a few months later comes the moment we've been waiting for. The Ottomans declare on Adal, and we immediately intervene by offering Adal an alliance. The Ottomans have a small advantage in numbers, but we have higher quality troops and favorable defensive terrain. My original plan was to start sieging the Ottoman enclave in what used to be Shirvani land in the eastern Caucasus. However, the Ottomans quickly responded to our entry into the war by calling one of their allies, Transoxiana. One of the best strategies when fighting a two-front war in EU4 is to go after the weaker front first and force them out of the war, so that's what we do. The forts in the west will have to hold out as long as they can, and hopefully Adal can make some progress in Egypt while I have Ottoman forces tied down. The campaign in the east goes well. Transoxiana forces don't seem to want a pitched battle, so we're able to siege down forts all the way to the capital. Once we take the capital, we head northwest and are finally able to catch their army in the field. Their forces are outmatched both in quantity and quality, so we get our first victory of the war. Our goal with Transoxiana is not only to get them out of the war, but also get some provinces back for our vassal Khorasan. To that end, I send our forces back down to the southeast to siege down the remaining forts and provinces with Khorasani corps. At this point, we've completed both defensive and quality ideas, and for our fifth group, I chose diplomatic. We're able to catch the Transoxiana forces at Berjand while they try to siege a mountain fort, and they get routed easily. Transoxiana takes a peace deal shortly afterwards, and we do quite well, getting 6 Khorasani corps returned. The Ottomans have made very little progress while we were marching all over Transoxiana. They took the Georgian capital fort, but they've been unable to do much else. Time to march west and see how we match up against the Ottomans, who have gone with both quantity and quality ideas as they usually do. The first battle is a relief of the fort at Hasankaifa and results in an Ottoman stack wipe. I decide to go back to the original plan and occupy the eastern enclave before heading west into Anatolia. With the enclave occupied, we relieve another siege at Ardabil with another stack wipe. This is immediately followed by a second battle at Hasankaifa, resulting in a third back-to-back rout. The Ottomans are not managing this war well at all. Now they're the ones stuck in a multi-front war, having to defend their provinces in Egypt and the Levant from Adal, as well as trying to push into our territory. With Ottoman forces repelled and Georgia retaking their capital, it's time to go on the offensive. We take the border fort of Diyarbakir without resistance and move further west into Anatolia. Somewhat surprisingly, the Ottomans take an early peace deal and we get 3 Caucasian provinces given to us. This is enough to complete our Caucasian conquest mission. Of course, we can't core these, so we release Shirvan and Karabakh. This kicks off another lengthy era of peace. Baluchistan peacefully joins our empire in June of 1623, and we get enough favors with Fars to ask for Baghdad back in December of 1630. Zoroastrian Multan is willing to join our empire in June of 1631, and in February of 1633 we're able to get the Baluchi corps of Kandahar returned from our ally Delhi. Since we have all the corps for Karabakh and Baluchistan, we start integrating them. Karabakh finishes in June of 1633, and Baluchistan in March of 1637. We get another Mushashan corps returned in May of 1639, the province of Karbala. We also release Afghanistan with the single province of Kandahar. In February of 1647, we get the Afghan province of Bamyan returned from Delhi. We get the final Mushashan province returned in December of 1649. The process of getting all these corps back from Fars took a total of 62 years. Fars has too much development to be our vassal, so we break that alliance for now. We annex Mushasha, which completes in November of 1665. Less than a year later, we use favors to get Kabul returned to Afghanistan. We get another chance to fight the Ottomans, this time in February of 1675. Great Britain declared war against Spain over Austrian succession, and the Ottomans, being longtime allies of the British, answered the call to arms. Wanting another chance to fight the Ottomans, I offered an alliance to Spain, which was accepted. This was an extremely easy war. In this game, Great Britain is functionally useless in European land wars, so this ended up being a dogpile against the Ottomans. The first significant battle was the relief of the siege of Baghdad in June of 1676. By this point, our armies have a significant discipline, morale, and tactics advantage, and the result is a brutal stack wipe, 87,000 Ottomans for just 3,000 of our soldiers. We catch out a smaller Ottoman army at Kazania, and the result is even more one-sided. 34,000 Ottoman troops for just 312 of ours. The largest battle of the war came in November of 1677, when a combined Allied force attacked a large Ottoman army in Antakya. This was another decisive win. Our European allies had sieged the Ottoman territory in the Balkans, including their capital, and we sieged the rest of Anatolia. The Ottomans signed peace in May of 1679, giving up most of Ottoman Brazil, yes, that was a thing, and returning the last Georgian core of Kakheti. We were able to pick up a final vassal in January of 1681, another Zoroastrian conversion, this time in India. We complete the integration of Georgia in August of 1683. Delhi returns another Afghan province in August of 1684. I was hoping to get our Khorasani and Timurid cores back from Transoxiana, but they refused to do anything. They're allied with the Ottomans, so I was hoping they would attack me together, or that Delhi would call me in against them, but nothing ever happened. To clean up the borders, I integrated Khorasan and the Timurids, which completed in October 1692. Let's do an overview of the nation before we wrap this one up. Here's a look at the religious map mode. Between our center of conversion and trade node, we were able to convert a significant number of provinces to Zoroastrianism. As far as ideas, this is what we ended up with: defensive, humanist, influence, quality, diplomatic, and espionage. Our military quality ended up quite good, morale of 6.24 and 125% discipline. 10% of that discipline is from the fully upgraded Baku Ateshka monument in Shirvan. Here's a look at development, with green representing more developed provinces and red representing less developed ones. With the exception of the newly integrated territory, you can see that our average development level is quite high. Here's a look at our diplomatic reputation, which is extremely high due to a combination of our ideas, policies, and the Golistan Palace. Without the Annex Subjects modifier, this would be at 11. Lastly, let's look at the world geopolitical situation. We finish as the 4th-ranked great power ahead of the Ottomans. Europe was somewhat strange this game. France was never able to expel England from the mainland, so they were much weaker than usual. Sweden formed a unified Scandinavia, and this was the rare case in which both Russia and the PLC had very strong games. I think the Ottoman slow start, with Venice holding Constantinople for a number of years, helped both the Commonwealth and Russia. The HRE was strange as well. Austria had a very poor game, and the strongest German power is likely Westphalia, formed by Cologne. I'll play the game timeline while I discuss some final thoughts. Going into this challenge, I thought I would be able to survive with these restrictions, but I wasn't sure if I would be able to really expand and thrive. In that sense, the run was easier than I thought, and the beginning was quite interesting. But as AI nations consolidated, the opportunity to intervene in wars went way down, and much of the game just turned into internal development and waiting for favors to accumulate with allies. The back half of this challenge was kind of boring, and I wouldn't recommend this playstyle for that reason. Still, I was able to answer the question. Yes, it is possible to play EU4 ethically. Anyways, that about wraps this one up. As always, if you enjoy this sort of content, feel free to like and subscribe. I do a mix of content, but EU4 is one of my favorite games, and I'll definitely be making more EU4 videos in the future. I have some ideas for additional challenge runs that I think could be fun, and at some point I'd like to do an in-depth retrospective. I also plan to cover EU5 when it eventually releases. If any of that sounds interesting, feel free to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.